Hey guys, this is Rainbow bringing you another game from the Gosu Coaching Weekly Tournament number 2. And in this game we have Ksh, who is actually Tester, versus gretorp. Now, gretorp is a relatively big name, and by relatively big name I mean I've read it around a couple of times. He's a relatively well-known Terran player in the StarCraft 2 beta, but I don't have any specific information about him right now. This is a best of 3, so I'll be sure to have more details on gretorp when it comes to casting game 2. But Tester is a former StarCraft 1 pro gamer. He was a very successful 2v2 player. He played with Hiva on his team, and he played Protoss, and then he became a coach for Eastro, a Protoss coach, and right now he is playing StarCraft 2, and he's doing very well at it. And again, this is the Gosu Coaching Weekly Tournament numero 2. And we can see that gretorp is going to go ahead and build a supply depot at a completely random spot in his base. This is being played on Steps of War right here. And Steps of War is a little bit interesting because it's very, very short in terms of rush distance between the players. But there aren't any really weird gimmicks like there are on a bunch of the other maps. There's no destructible rocks, except these semi-islands right here. And there's no short air distance or anything really funky like that. gretorp is going to go ahead and get a little bit of a late barracks, it did look like. And he's really delaying his gas. And in the meantime, we can see the Tester's just gone ahead and done really standard things with this gateway and this assimilator and this second pylon. So we're going to see how that works out for him. It does look like gretorp, being a little bit late and not getting these gas, is going to have an interesting time on this map. He might actually be going for a 1-rex fast expand, maybe. Orbital command coming up for him as soon as that barracks does finish. One of the more interesting parts about StarCraft 2 is the way the macro mechanics for Terran and Zerg work. You're actually not down that much for getting a very early barracks or a very early spawning pool comparatively, because you get access to your orbital commander or queen much earlier. And we can see that by delaying that barracks a little bit, and I do hope he did do that, and I do hope it wasn't just 12 racks, and for whatever reason I think he's building it late. But when you do delay that barracks, and here we actually do see that he's going to 1-rex fast expand, you delay your macro mechanic a little bit, so you don't necessarily gain as much as you would in StarCraft 1, where if you delay it, you would just get this massive macro advantage, because you and your opponent are just producing probes, USCVs, or drones, or whatever at a constant rate. But now, that rate just really spikes up once Terran have access to mules and Zerg have access to a queen, just because you can get literally free mules and also free queens. And we can see that gretorp is just continuing to pump marines. He's not going to get gas yet. He's just getting supply depots, and he's adding 2 barracks for a total of 3. Some very nice macro going on by both players with the Zealot attack. The Zealot isn't really going to be able to do a whole bunch of damage to anything except that SCV, and it is going to get kited around. Again, very nice macro from gretorp. I'm going to pop back on over to Tester's base just because I feel like I've been neglecting it. We can see that he's chrono boosting out a Stalker. He's got the warp gate upgrades, the warp gate upgrade being researched. I cannot talk. And he's also warping in 2 additional gateways. And this means that he's going to have a lot of production in order to match gretorp's lot of production. But what he's not doing is he's not teching up, and he's also not expanding. gretorp just has essentially the same level of tech as soon as he decides to get gas and as soon as he decides to get tech labs, but he isn't doing that yet. So it's just straight marines versus zealots, stalkers, and sentries. And it does look like there is an additional gas going on for Tester, which is a signal that he either intends to tech up or just go very gateway heavy, which I understand is, oh my gosh, Void Ray. Lol. There is a Stargate coming up. This is a really cool proxy location for Tester. We can see that he's proxying right here at the Zelnaga Watchtower, so he actually gets vision, and this proxy is just a little bit easier to defend. On the other hand, it is harder just because your opponent can't get it. But with the build that gretorp's going, he's got a lot of punch in terms of combat units, but only when they stick together, so he doesn't have a lot of mobility to go scouting around with things. So this single SAV, especially, will get taken down by the Stalkers and the Zealots over here, guarding that proxy. Void Rays are not the best against Marines, but Void Rays plus ground armies are the best against Marines, just because the Marines have to deal with the ground army while the Void Rays deal with, anything that can shoot air. if that makes sense. And Voiders also have very, very nice range, and they do a bajillion DPS, so they're very hard to kill, and they're very easy to keep alive. We can see that Tester did go ahead and go and just for a little bit of a poke with some of his units, and he actually lost a fair amount of Zealots and Stalkers. I'm going to pop on over to the Units Lost tab, and we can see that he lost a fairly large resource value of Zealots and Stalkers, but he didn't really do that much damage. On the other hand, he's not really that much worse off than he was before, just because gretorp did do that fast expand. Gretorp does have 2 orbital commands instead of 1, so gretorp is at a massive, massive income advantage. If we pop on over to the tab, we can see that he's about 200 up, and that's just going to get bigger as the game goes on, just because he can produce twice as many SCVs as Tester can produce probes. And we do see that a Void Ray is coming out for Tester, a second Void Ray actually. And he's going to go ahead and knock down these destructible rocks. I love how I said at the beginning, of course, that the map doesn't have any destructible rocks except at the semi-island, and these are the obvious exception, but you don't really see this attack path being used very often. It is being used here by Tester to great effect, because he's forcing gretorp to get barracks in this line right here, as well as in this line right here, to defend his natural, which is very nice. And we can see the Void Ray just coming in and doing a little bit of harass, picking off that SCV for free. 1 kill on Mr. Void Ray. And gretorp is just afraid to come up and deal with the Void Ray, because he knows that all of these units can come down and deal with anything that he sends to deal with the Void Ray. And I'm using the word deal with too much. But all of these Stalkers and all of these Sentries, and this dead Sentry, I guess, all these Stalkers and all of these Zealots are just incredibly effective at killing Marines. So that was an amazing force field by Tester right there, right before that Sentry died. I do hope you guys caught that. Blocking the ramp for 15 seconds, so the reinforcements for gretorp are going to be far, far, far too late. And look at how fast these fully charged Void Rays just cut through Marines, especially with the Stalker and Zealot support, and gretorp is just out of Marines. Gretorp is going to have plenty of workers and marauders to hold the ground field here, but he doesn't have anything that can shoot up. And these Void Rays are going to be more than enough to kill all of the Marines that he cares to produce, even off of these large numbers of barracks. Gretorp is out of the game at this point. And we are going to see a GG shortly. Just going to spoil that for you. Gretorp is out of the game. So I don't really know how gretorp could have held that. Just as soon as the Void Rays got in the mix, Tester was able to just attack from these awesome positions and these awesome angles, where he could really abuse the fact that the Void Ray enables gretorp to, or the Void Ray rather forces gretorp to keep units that can shoot up alive. So pulling probes isn't especially effective, SCVs in this case, because gretorp is a Terran player. And Marines just die so fast to Zealots and Sentries and Stalkers. So the ground support really, really sealed the deal there. So very nice game by both players. We can see gretorp really working that 1 Rex fast expand, and he was very safe against any sort of ground aggression. But we do see Tester is gosu and can beat that. So again, this is a best of 3, and I will see you in next